Well met, lords and ladies, Jacob Butter speaking, and a warm welcome to this week's Walking Wednesday. I'm in a new area again, and you might be wondering why that necessarily is. Well, it's to do with one of the two things that I'm discussing this week. Because this week something bad happened, and then something really good happened. So, we'll cover those, and that's basically the two main highlights. So, to make the most sense, and of course there are 3 dogs right as I'm in a new area, so yeah, why not? You know, 1 dog, why not 3, of course. So anyway, I'm gonna either continue down this way or go wind down one of the back alleys, so we'll see what happens. Either way, we'll let that lady with the 3 dogs cross first or something. Anyway, what I was saying was, you know, there was the bad and then there was the good. So let's start off with the bad at the moment. I regret to inform everyone that I will no longer be voicing Ivan in the Tales of Censored and Trash Cat. So yeah, that's you might be wondering, well, you know, what on earth happened? Why is that the case? Did you end up getting tired of, you know, how they were treating the franchise that you actually really enjoy, or was it the reveal that they were trying to intentionally make it even worse than before, just out of pure sense of disrespect from the original? No, none of that actually. It was something that was much more mundane and somewhat bureaucratic, if you can even call anything on Discord by that description. So, yeah, what happened? Well, I was, you know, just minding my own business at one point, you know, just being on Discord as I often am, and I happened to see a message that was from someone new, which is not always, you know, which is not something that I'm unaccustomed to, because, you know, my Discord username and such is, you know, public information, because that's how people contact me about, you know, roles and all of that stuff. So, and technically speaking, that is what was happening. I was being contacted regarding a role. So you know, so here's the thing. So I don't remember the username of the person, but they're from the admin team on, I believe, the Alpha Sisters, not the community Discord, but the voice actors Discord, or possibly both. I don't know. It's a be one way or the other. And they specifically said something along the lines of, you know, we've received information that you have you've made videos. Oh wait, no, sorry. First of all, they said, you know, to clarify, all of the Alpha Sisters voice actors are volunteers, you know, and who are, you know, just doing their best and all of that stuff. And we've heard that you've had specific videos targeting some of the voice actors specifically. And to which immediately I was thinking, what do you mean by that? Do you mean how, like, I comment on the voice acting performances in some of the Alpha Sisters videos? Because, you know, I have done that. That's true. You know, if I feel like a performance is not good, I will mention that thing. I did go into describe, you know, the idea of, okay, well, if I've offended somebody by, you know, how I've reacted to them, because obviously I like to crack jokes at the same time, so it's not, you know, gacha reviews not just the same repetitive thing over and over again with no humor. I think some people remember the time that I deliberately went for 5 minutes without laughing or, you know, making any jokes or anything, and it was the worst 5 minutes of any gacha review video ever. So I didn't mention that one, but I'm saying that for all of you. But I just mentioned that, yeah, like, that's not the point. So, because you know, I had, you know, apparently made those videos targeting specific people or something, they said, oh, well, we can't have you in the role of Ivan because, you know, we want to I believe they mentioned, like, disclosing, like, safety or something. which is, again, very weird phrasing considering that I don't think I've done anything unsafe, much less on the server itself. I barely ever talked on there. So yeah, they said that I was and when I explained, you know, what I thought they meant, basically, they said, oh, this is not, you know, about arguing a case, this is about telling you what's happening, have a good day. I was like, well, hang on a second, wait a minute, what kind of system is that? You're just going to take one person's word over the other? Why is their word worth more than mine? You know, talk about this situation. So they actually did listen to me, because of course they did. You know, so I feel like any sensible human being would come to their senses after being called out like that. So so I asked, because eventually it turned out that it wasn't the Alpha Sister videos themselves that were the issue, because you know, of course, you know, I've actually suffered more targeting from reviewing the Alpha Sisters videos from their community, including people in the server, than they ever actually did, you know, than ever was the case in the reverse. Because remember, there was that whole thing where even before the review of Straight No Gay School Part 2 started, I was already getting insults from people, you know, just for, you know, irrelevant things, you know. So it's not so again, I've been on the receiving end, and I definitely know the difference. So then the admin tried to clarify that it wasn't just in the Alpha Sisters themselves, which is interesting, because they started off by saying, oh, they're all volunteers. Yes, they're all volunteers for the Alpha Sisters. When it comes to their own work, I mean, they are just, you know, the people doing it. So that doesn't make sense, again. I didn't mention that, but I was trying to get to the root of the matter. So apparently it was to do with specific videos about those people. It wasn't like comments that I'd made about anyone's like voice acting, as I initially assumed. It was to do with, I guess, one of the other reviews about somebody else's videos. So and then after is that, which is, and this next part's kind of interesting, because they initially were like, oh, you know, not arguing your case, whatever, have a good day, you know, whatever, this is it, this is the final message. And then afterwards they said, oh, can we get you to confirm that you will not be doing this again? And so I said, well, what is it? Do you want to not contact me again, or do you want me to confirm that I'm not going to do something? Because that would involve me responding. So what is it? And the most annoying part is that apparently they were consulting back and forth with Jesse, who I have had correspondence with in the past, about the role of Ivan specifically. So I don't know why they didn't just come directly to me. Maybe it's because that's what the monitors are for or something. But you know, after a certain point, you would think, okay, well, I mean, please, please step in, person who knows what they're actually doing. So that happened after that, and so I'm just trying to navigate around and see if I can find a good place. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so while that was happening, I think they then, while they wanted a confirmation, I said, well, I can't really do that unless I know who specifically felt like they were targeted. Because here's the thing, this is something that I've dealt with in a way in the past. You know, actually at one point, Jax Penwell came to me and said that the Gacha shipper had told him that she didn't want me watching any more of her videos or reviewing them, and so I stopped. Same thing when Josh said that Shaninja didn't want me to review any more of his videos, and so I stopped this as well. But the thing is, when I don't know who the person actually is, I don't know what exactly I'm supposed to stop. And the Alpha Sisters, they have 2 servers, over 50,000 subscribers, and, you know, hundreds of people in the server. And yes, I could check, you know, like the 231 people that were in the server at the time of when this all happened. The problem is, as most people know when it comes to this kind of thing on Discord, people don't always match up their usernames to their channels. So I don't recognize anyone else that was in those servers that I could have unintentionally seen. So I really just so I didn't have that going for me. And the other possibility, I said the only person that I knew who was associated with the Alpha Sisters and was friends with them, that I made videos in the past, more than one in fact, was April Moon. But it can't be April because April requested that I do gacha reviews and has commented on a couple of them. So, you know, so it would make no sense for it to be April. And I said as much. The problem is that person didn't want to come forward and apparently they're a minor, so they wanted that so out of a sense of like the server's duty of protection, they couldn't reveal that, which is fair enough. I am going to turn back because this is just a road. So yeah, on their end they were unable to do anything else, but the admin actually did try at that point. And so I said, well, you know, unfortunately I can't really confirm anything because unless I know who the person is that wants me to stop, I don't know. I don't know what it is. And I said I was prepared to, you know, talk to the person or something, and at least apologize if I offended them. But you know, I guess again, out of a sense of the protection, they didn't want to give me their contact info. So you know, that's fair. So that's kind of where we were at. But they still wanted that confirmation. Otherwise, they were going to remove me from the server, which is interesting because they said they were going to punish me, and then they decided, as I kept on continuing to discuss the initial transgression, that they were going to punish me further if I didn't confirm something that they initially didn't want me to confirm. So, yeah, and because of all those reasons, and because again, like the only thing that they said was the possibility of, oh well, you know, make sure you ask the particular people that you want to review something of if it's okay beforehand, and then they'll tell you. Problem is, again, not everyone responds in the same way. They said, oh, Discord's not the only method of communication, to which I would say, well, in that case, why don't they try some of them? They're not bound to the server rules outside of Discord, but anyway. So, you know, go ahead and like try and, you know, reach out to people or something. And that would be, and I get the idea behind that. If Gacha Review were a scarce show, then I could potentially try and make that work, but it isn't. You know, it's much like how Gacha Fest, I don't think, asks people to approve the submissions for Gacha itself in like that playlist. They're all going to get judged in the year. It's the same thing. I don't know what the Gacha Guild Awards process actually is, whether or not they contact people. But then again, I've talked about their practices in the past anyway, so who knows. So it's just not a feasible thing. Not to mention as well, I'm pretty sure that most people know about this, that, you know, minor or otherwise, if you put something on the internet, people are going to see it. But on the same way as that happens, if you make a piece of art, people are going to criticize it. You know, I've said before in the past, no art is beyond criticism. And again, out of a sense of courtesy, if people have reached out to me on behalf of somebody else that I know, I've said, okay, fine, sure. I've said my piece about, you know, the stuff that I've done. They didn't ask me to take down those videos or anything. They just said just to don't make any more. So I was like, okay, fine. But that goes against like my entire thing of no art is beyond criticism. You know, if people want to take the gacha community seriously, then they need to have a sense of, okay, well, there needs to be a sense of we're bound by the same rules. Because, you know, on one side, you have the people that, you know, despise gacha, and if you know, look down upon everything because it's gacha, and, you know, that's already terrible. But you have the other side, which concerns this matter. Oh, the dogs are still there. I guess they didn't, like, go for a walk. Jeez. Gotta walk past them again. Right, fine. Going this way. what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so then it comes down to, well, the people who, the people who don't take them seriously on the other end, which is the people who just say, oh, all these videos are made by kids, so, what, whatever. And again, I understand where they're coming from, but the reason I go in the middle, the reason why I've done things the way that I've done for so long is because we're still looked down upon in general as a community. So, we've got to show that, there's something in there, for everyone. And if you put your work into the public, that's always something that's going to happen. I do my best to be fair and balanced in what is there, but I'm also honest. If something doesn't work, I'll say why I think it doesn't work. My opinion is subjective. So for all those reasons, I said, well, if those are my only recourses of action, you backed me into a corner, so I'm just going to leave on my own accord. Well, I left both the servers on my own terms and didn't look back. So no more Ivan from me, but you can bet that I'll be reviewing the next episode when it comes out. Because apparently they said the Upstairs are okay with me reviewing their content, which is interesting because they also involve voice actors who probably did not approve of it themselves. So I don't know what, again, double standards a little bit. But there you go. That's the bad news. Is that I lost one of the roles that I guess due to the numbers was probably one thing that was going to garner like the most focus and attention for a portfolio of some sorts. Not to worry, because the most recent Sequels to Plex episode came out, and that one was, and that one I'm sure is going to do pretty well anyway. So, as far as that will definitely help out with the show reel of some kind. But anyway, enough about voice roles, because it's time to talk about actual theatre roles. I know that I technically broke my theatre dry spell back in Galicia a while ago when I did like that thing in class and whatever, but that was minor, I suppose. So this is the real deal. The reason that I am here is because within this vicinity, not saying where specifically, obviously, unless you want to buy tickets, of course. I actually attended an audition a few days ago for this year's pantomime of, well, I say this year, actually, it starts next year. Technically next year's January, pantomime of Jack and the Beanstalk. And that's one where, and that was something that I got forwarded, and I was like, oh, I'm sending them an email immediately. So I got very excited because like, okay, well, I've actually got something to, I'll give this a go. Shout out to Beanie Boy as well, who helped me rehearse on Friday, actually, for a few of the roles. I specifically wanted to go for the role of Ted / the beggar, because I shouldn't have said that. I've accidentally revealed that they're the same person. Whoops. One's hood is you're not supposed to know. So of course, me being the fan of multi-role that I am, that's what I put forward. That was my main thing. Although that character's supposed to be middle-aged, so I thought, okay, I'm a little bit out of the ideal casting range. So I'll prepare another one, which is a backup, in case that doesn't go well. And so I auditioned for a character named Owen, who is a parody of Steve Irwin, who I also looked up for reference, because I was like, okay, oh, I see, fair enough, this guy. Ironically enough, I had also just seen an episode of Ant Farm where they also had a parody of him. So I was like, okay, I can base this off of this here. I can also, wrestle a toad. So yeah, I got to the event after, having that rehearsal, the day after, a family birthday party. So, I was as prepared as I could have been under the time constraints. Waiting to see what would actually happen. I also brought in a bunch of props because I act better with props and costumes, so I'd brought some of my own to help out with that, and you know that we were kind of off. It was we did a bit of a dance audition at first, which was, you know, the simple choreography of one of the songs. I can spoil which one this actually is because it's Shut Up and Dance, and that's which is in nearly every single pantomime that I've seen in the past 5 years. So very much dog planning escape, that's not good. Okay. Very much expecting that one. There was also a moment where the choreographer unfortunately ended up because of how the numbering worked, which was going by like the counts rather than the actual music itself. There was a moment where there's a part between before, like after the chorus starts and after the first verse, and then after the chorus again after then the second verse. One of them has 4 counts of 4, and the other one has 2 counts of 4, and the difference hadn't registered, so then everyone got thrown off because they were, you know, copying her in the moment. So it was like, I know what happened, but I'll tell you later. And I didn't get the chance because right then we were off to do the first auditions, including the Owen scene, in which now Beanie Boy said that despite Owen being my backup, he was my strongest contender. So to some extent, I was putting my best foot forward immediately. Or immediately, whilst I was technically third. We rotated the same scene between different people who were trying to, who were going to audition for, you know, Jack, Jill, because there's a Jill in this. Oh wait, no, she wasn't involved in that scene. It was Dottie. Then there was a comedy trio that I almost went for, but I changed. I was like, oh, I might go for, you know, Seymour Views, who is now Wanda Views, by the way, because it's, you know, that's about how the casting turned out. But I eventually was like, oh well, Owen's actually more fun in this scene, so, you know, and I went did that one 6 times. There were 3 Owens, so I did my bit twice, and they really liked the way that I actually wrestled the plush toad, because, you know, because like I said before, I have not done much theatre in the last 3 years, so I was definitely very keen to just be like, yep, let's go all out from the start, even though we'd already just danced, so I guess adrenaline was already pumping through my veins. But and then so I did. I was, you know, I one time I ran around, other time I was like on the floor just like wrestling, like, you know, thrashing about, you know, eventually end up out of breath, both in and out of character, and you know, obviously kept up the fake Australian accent I'm supposed to have for that character. So yeah, with all of that, everyone was already decently impressed. But of course, you know, that was my backup. I wanted to see what I could do as the other 1/technically 2, or 2 technically 1, I suppose I should say. So of course, you know, because that's me trying to prove my versatility, you know, as Beanie Boy mentioned, you know, I was able to jump into those and make them sound different, partly because of, you know, how many years I've spent as a voice actor now. So yeah, I was fully prepared in the moment for, you know, and with the props and everything. So so there we were, and I guess I could, you know, run through like how that would go, but you don't know these people or what the scenes are about, so there's no point really describing in too much detail. But basically, one of them was extremely posh like this, and the other one was my use of the West Country accent I haven't actually used as the porter in Macbeth about 10 years ago. So, you know, it was in my repertoire deep down. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. And there's even a moment actually, you know, that I was where it's one thing I will describe. When I was being the Ted, who was the landlord, you know, the posh one, there's a moment where one of the characters listening for the dame actually had to like insult me a bunch of times and be like, you know, you something, 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 mongoose, or whatever. I don't know what the actual line was anymore. But actually, whether he paused at that point, and then he was like, you something, and I went, bleh. And then he picked up and immediately went, something, 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 bleh. You know, that was, and that was completely unplanned from both of us. So, yeah, it's one of those, you know, magical moments of theatre in the moment, and I'm sure that if we had both got those parts, we would have probably elaborated on that to some degree once we were free of scripts. But alas, that was not the role that I received, because after the auditions had concluded, after we'd done all the scenes as many times as was necessary, depending on who was auditioning, there were 6 Jacks, I think, and 6 Dotties. No, 4 Jacks and 6 Dotties, so, you know, one of those things. But after all of that was concluded, everyone was leaving, basically, and some of the staff from the theatre itself, you know, they were asking, oh, how did you hear about us? I said, oh, I got forwarded the ad, and blah, 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 blah. And then one of them just came up to me and went, can you sing? Now I many things, but if the previous Alpha Sisters Ivan Roll story is anything to go by, a liar is not one of them. So I was like, do I sing? Yes. So they asked me and one other lady to stay back, because there's a few characters no one actually went for. There is the Giant, his name I believe is Eric. I said it should have been Andre the Giant, but whatever. Maybe I was thinking Eric Andre as well as Andre the Giant, but whatever. That's not the point. No one ended up going for him. I said, oh, I can read for him if you want, and they said, no, I don't want to, you know, make them do something they don't want to do, which is somewhat ironic after what actually happened. So there's another character who no one auditioned for. This particular performance has a lot of characters in this one that are featuring a band called King, which is their version of Queen, the band. So you know, you have characters like, you know, like Brian something. I forgot like what their specific puns actually were about their names. Could be like Brian April or something. I'm not sure. And then, but of course, there is the front man they need, who is Freddie Venus instead of Freddie Mercury. And since no one auditioned for him, they were, I guess, scrambling, because the thing is with those other characters, one thing they do a lot of the time when you're casting for something is you specify if they're musical numbers, if a character has, you know, no song numbers. And that is the one disadvantage, I would say, of the ones that I went for, is that I feel like I'd be better, you know, I get more mileage out of them acting-wise, but they had no individual singing parts. I think actually, well, Ted has some spoken lines in some in one of the songs, I think. I guess in an attempt to have someone who maybe didn't want to sing but also be a good villain in the role. So I sort of get it. But yeah, I guess I guess no one was feeling the Freddie magic, I suppose, in that moment, or in the audition itself. Except for, I guess, maybe this lady was like, oh, I might actually do it, which was the same thing that I said. It's like, oh, well, you know, whatever. Since I'm already here, might as well. And I actually called back to something that happened back in primary school. My first year of primary school was actually the first time that I, well, it was the second time technically that I'd ever actually been on stage. The first time was in a camp where I actually had the role of Vegeta before knowing anything about Dragon Ball Z, except for the fact that my brother had some fridge magnets from the saga. Oh, how the times have changed, of course. But anyway, the that second time was because what we did at the end of the year in that one was there would be like some sort of like showcase of all the different like year groups from infant school to primary, and they would because I was involved in this, obviously, we would do something in English, whether it was dancing to an English song, some sort of representation of some kind, or ultimately a play. Sometimes would be like doing like singing numbers and whatever. Someone would just dance. It depended. But my English teacher was a bit more ambitious. He wanted to do a play, like I said, and the play was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, it was just a scene from them, and I got the main role in that one, not through any merits of my own or any audition process. I guess we were a bit too young for the pressure of auditions, potentially, according to some, but actually, instead it was because I was the one native English speaker in the class at the time. So, well, I guess ever, really. There's another boy whose dad was English, but he also grew up in Spain, so I guess it was not his first language like it was with mine. So, no grimas. It's too soon. No grimas. There's actually a spider on that, so it's a Halloween and Christmas thing. Ingenious, I suppose. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so that same year, there was also the group performance of like everyone together, because that's one thing. We would always, all of us, sing some form of song. Not always in English. Weirdly enough, the year after this, they did a song called Un Millón de Amigos, A Million Friends, which was in Spanish. But that particular year, that first year, we were introduced to Queen, most of us for the first time, including me, by singing We Are the Champions. So there were no solos or anything, but I happened to, because of that, I had experience with the song We Are the Champions and some fond memories looking back at that one specifically. So given they said, oh, we'll just do like any song by Queen, it was an obvious choice. So, I basically started, of doing my thing. The director let me his phone so I could play the instrumental, said I need to be cued in so I can actually, be on time and everything. But, other than that, so I immediately started. I've paid my dues time after time. That was barely it. I was exhausted by that point anyway. I thought it was going to sound awful because I've been, dancing and projecting and wrestling plush toads and everything. But in the moment, the director actually rejoiced and then hugged someone next to him. So at that point I kind of thought, okay, nothing else that I've done at this point has mattered. This is probably what I will get. I continued We Are the Champions up until the chorus with a bit more falsetto than I would have liked at that point because again I was exhausted. And that was that. And then the lady actually did Don't Stop Me Now, which turns out was because it's the opening. There's an opening song in this one, which is a parody of Don't Stop Me Now. And so I thought, okay, you're probably going to get this because, also you didn't go for that many other roles aside from this or weren't too super keen on them. So, okay, we'll see what happens. At the end of the performance, the director did say that he shouldn't say this, but I would be cast as something. I had a feeling it was going to be Freddie, just because of, again, lack of other interested parties, I suppose. Well, then again, it was somewhat of a toss-up because, I don't know if everyone actually was still around when they said, hey, can someone sing? They've got a couple of other people who are actually, playing the bass and everything, so, the band is definitely going to take form. And today is the reading. And that's why I'm in this area, and I finally got to it after about half an hour of rambling about other stuff. So the ultimate takeaway for this week is that I lost a role But I have gained another, and, you know, regardless, it wasn't the one that I was intending to have originally, but it's still something, it's still a, you know, thing that's going to get me back into the theatre, and actually, you know, accomplished something I've wanted to do for quite some time, which is be in a panto. You know, people who know me in real life know that I have been, for years, since I was 11, so my first panto, I always wanted to be like the one who was called up onto the stage to take part, because they do audience participation, and yeah. And actually this panto particularly, and now I've seen the script, and the version of Don't Stop Me Now that I have, I'm actually more excited for this chance, because normally when it comes to parodies of songs, they keep them recognizable so that sometimes the audience will join in or something, to some degree. And actually one thing that a friend of mine said a long time ago about one of my parodies was that the difference in like how I write parodies and how other people do is that some of the time they'll just like fill in certain words, or they won't like all match the rhythm or anything. But I read the script. Most of it is different. It keeps the same essence, but it applies to Jack and the Beanstalk specifically. And it actually feels, you know, actually like feels like it's in the rhythm and everything. It matches the tone of the play with the tone of the song, and it has some, you know, obviously there are a couple of things I think, okay, well this would have been better if it was like done this way or something, but I'm always going to feel like that, you know? I'm the actor, I interpret the script now, so, you know, if they want my suggestions, then so be it. But if not, what they've got there is pretty good, especially like by panto lyric standards, because most of the time they just don't bother. So I'm very glad they did, and I'm glad to be the person who gets to bring that to life. And I'm now going to go and head there, because I'm really hoping I'm not late thanks to this recording. So it went on for a bit longer than I thought. So pretty sure I got here with enough time. But just in case, please leave a like or dislike, because your opinion matters. Subscribe if not already. And on that note, until next time, farewell.